Those big companies are scary.
Do you know what? Those big companies are full of people, projects and project managers. They need your support. They need what you've got to provide them. You're just good enough.
Am I good enough?
You're always good
Am I
enough.
good enough?
You're always good enough. Welcome, willkommen, bienvenue. Welcome to another one of my live streams. Of course, today I'm joined by David Chernick, the man with the hat. Oh, that's me. I'm Gareth Wax of many purple hats, and we want to talk to you about dealing with those big boys, the companies that you think are completely out off the chain, that you'll never be able to make your way with. I've got to tell you, you're wrong. Even big companies love dealing, ever more so these days, with smaller, agile companies who are able to be flexible. They love that. But the only problem you've got is credibility. And once you've found a way to get past that, there's no reason. My biggest deal ever was we were a tin pot little company, and they were Hitachi Data Systems. So, and you dealt with them as well.
I've sold to Hitachi Data Systems.
Yeah, but you were a much larger company at that time, weren't you?
Not larger, a minnow compared with Hitachi Data Systems.
All right. Well, so it's the same deal, but you can get in there. You just need to. It's because I think in the early days it's about personality and becoming acquainted with the person that's relevant to what you do in such a way that
people buy from people. You and I would always say that people buy from people, and I think anybody who's been involved in sales instinctively knows that. If you've been a buyer, you know that you're dealing with a person. But when you're dealing with a person who works in a huge enterprise, they're often not in charge. I mean, most of the stuff that you would be selling to them, you would be not selling to the chairman of the board. You'll be selling to an employee, probably a middle manager, who is bound by rules. And they're bound by rules that are both formal and informal rules. The formal rules being the ones that here's how we procure services, and the informal ones, which is their own fear of what if I mess up. When you and I were growing up, people used to say nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. Yeah, and so it was like free.
And the other one was no one ever got fired for buying BT. Do you remember that?
I do remember. I spent some time in the telecoms industry where we were battling against that kind of thing.
But you always, you would work really hard. You'd put together an amazing breakdown of exactly what the service was going to be, and they would always, not back then, you'd end up losing out because they'd just go back to BT, even though BT was charging double the amount, was giving less service and less provision. They wanted because back that time that was the bad old days. These days, companies are looking for flexibility. They want to know that they've got a person they can deal with rather than a computer system.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff. I think that there is a bunch of stuff they're looking for. And actually, early in my career, I actually did work for a bit for IBM. And it was at the time when that blue suit shine was becoming less shiny, that they were not winning deals off the back of their reputation and scale. And so they really had to put a lot of effort into changing their image, really. The sort of the arrogance of walking into any company, and because they were IBM, being able to walk out with an order. And that happens. I mean, that happened to BT when their market opened up. But I'm thinking about it from the opposite way now. And both you and I are running small businesses, and many of my clients are small-ish. I mean, my clients range typically from 10 to 200 people businesses, but I deal with micropreneurs and one-man bands and crazy Gen Zers and people with bright spark ideas, that kind of thing. So I'm used to seeing it. And I mean, I got one of the reasons that prompted me to be thinking about this at this point was because I got a call the other day from somebody who works in the corporate travel sector, right? And they want to be dealing with actually some of the companies I've helped my clients sell into, big companies who have a lot of executives traveling around the world. Now, there are some specialist providers in that space that are used to transporting hundreds and thousands of senior executives around the world,
right,
for their business travel. And so if you are, like a one-man band or a small agency, or you're one of these member of one of these network marketing travel companies, they've got quality offerings, they've got some buying power, and they are hard work, and they've got a lot of knowledge. But if they want to bash on the door, and this is what this person was calling me for, how do I get into one of these big companies? And they named the company that they really wanted to get into, and I gave them some tips on doing so. But some people have the fear of going into those big companies. Other people, I think, have sometimes the opposite, which is they're just going to bash down any door,
right,
and not worry too much about what their offering is, their competitive offering is. And these days,
I think you need to have a healthy regard for those larger companies and understand that they have processes within them, but still remembering it is just humans talking to humans. At the end of the day,
it's humans talking to humans.
If you can build a relationship between you, then you'd be surprised what flexibility there is available in the mix. If you can get that relationship so they feel you are authentic and that you're doing it not out of the goodness of your heart, but with an honest view to helping them, that you really do want to help.
So I want us this morning to come up with a couple of tips to how to open those doors, and how you can prepare yourself for getting into those larger enterprises.
I'm strapping in. All right, come on.
So, do you want to start with the tips? So people to people. Now we can find out easily these days who works where and what their jobs are.
Yeah.
And rather than relying on the sort of automated lead generation things, these things will just not wash with somebody who's going to be on the receiving end of 200 of these, emails and messages on a daily basis.
Right.
So we need to try and find a better way to do it. And I would always encourage people to be picking up the phone and navigating their way through a corporate. In these corporates, people often worry about the so-called gatekeeper, the secretary that's guarding the executive from your cold call. But the gatekeeper also, like you, is a human being, and they're a human. Their job is not to stop people getting through. Their job is to make sure that the right people get through, and that the diary of their executive
they'll get as many they'll get as many brownie points with the executive team if they put the right people through than if they block it.
But I mean, I've for years phrased it differently. They're unlikely to get fired for one person getting through when they shouldn't have, but they are more likely to get fired if that crucial person who should have got through didn't get through. Absolutely. Why did you not put him through? He was the savior for all of our problems. So you've got to have your chops, as we would say in music. You've got to be able to do what you say you are trying to do. It's pointless you phoning up a big company to try and compete with their big suppliers if your offering is not special compared to their big suppliers. We're just selling the same stuff. There's a good chance that they are going to want to go safe. Yeah, there's not. So you want to try and differentiate
even
yourself.
If the price is higher, even if the price is higher, they may well, if their mindset is, oh, don't do anything scary, then they might. So your role is to make them feel comfortable with you. So you are
for sure
the least scary option.
And you are more likely to be dealing with a more experienced buyer as well, and a buyer that knows what they're doing. So you're not going to be able to pull the wool over their eyes. Right. Perhaps as easily as you would with a less educated buyer, which means you've really got to know your services. And actually, that was pertinent to the particular case where I got called the other day. trying to get into a big company because that person did not have actually the product knowledge yet of what their offering could be from their network provider, right? So, so that is something that you really ought to invest the time in doing. If you're going to be taking the time and interrupting the day of somebody else, have something valuable to offer and know what you're offering. So that is one of my tips: is to become a bit of a geek. One of the main drivers for big corporates, and there's tons of research on this, you can go look this stuff up, is they like dealing with smaller companies, not just because of their agility, but because they might be particularly geeky in one area. I've got countless clients. In fact, one in particular springs to mind where they are competing with massive companies, billion-dollar companies. And these guys, I mean, they're a minnow compared to them. However, they really major on their quality of service and their personal touch. You will get access to their director level support people.
Well, I think right now that's the one of the watchwords, isn't it? Is personal touch, feeling that the person who starts the buyer journey is there at the end of the buyer journey.
Correct.
They're not constantly.
And they do not sell on price. They are way more expensive. Because their costs are higher, because they're dedicating more senior, more expensive people to servicing their clients. Okay, so that is one. They make that one of their selling points, and it means for them that instead of going after volume business, they're going for the top end boutique kind of business, right? So, if I was selling corporate travel, for example, to a big media company that is used to buying tons of travel for all of its talent and executives and project managers flying all around the world at any one time, I would be more interested in looking at some of the niche parts of their business, which for you will be more profitable. And if would give you opportunities for some of the volume in future. If you're a big media company and you're buying 1,000 trips a month, don't try and sell them 1,000 trips. Try and sell them the 10 that are for their really senior people. Yeah, where we'll all be able to use your personal touch, and you won't mind getting phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning in order to be able to keep them happy.
Dare I say it? I would go so far as to say, pick 5 of those executives, look up everything you can find about them, already put together supposed trips for them, for each one of them, each one slightly bespoke, send them over and say, this is the level of service we provide, and I thought these might be relevant for your guys.
There's a lot you can do with desk research these days. I mean, you've just made me think of something that I have done in the past, which is to look at the conference schedules. If you can see where the big conferences are and where their keynote speakers are traveling from,
right?
Then you can make a very specific call there. I see so and so is going to be traveling to the States to deliver the keynote at the great summit of whatever. How would you like a quote on that trip?
Absolutely.
You've got to been their experiences in the past. And another tip that I would add here is get used to dealing with users. There's been a huge trend away from dealing with users and honing in on the decision maker. Yeah, it's all about the decision maker. Oh my days. Yeah, I mean, decision makers are important. Of course they are. But if they buy something and they go to their workforce, their users, and they say, right, you're going to use this now, and their workforce objects, oh, I'm not using them, they're rubbish. Chances are you're going to get a call back saying, I'm sorry, dude, but they don't want it. I like you, but my users don't want it.
Right.
And that happens in the world of IT a lot. And it happens in business services a lot, where, a corporate will tell everybody you're going to be using this. It happens in CRM software a lot. We have decided that as a company, we're going to be using Acme CRM from now on. And the sales force goes, I'm not using that, or they'll pay it lip service and it just won't work.
No.
And these days in the software market, you need users to be on board.
Yeah, I think the best way of doing that, for instance, in that example, might be you got your sales director who desperately wants the CRM in place, and you also chat up the sales manager and perhaps even a lead salesman. You get them
100%.
to try it out and feel at home with it, and they'll drive the sale through for you, because you then go back to the sales director and say, I believe it's the right fit for your company, but you know what? To ensure that it was, I spoke to your sales manager and they've had a play with it and they're already liking it. And we've even put together a test version for them to have a go with. Why don't you have a look yourself? Is that the sort of reports you want?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that brings us to another tip, which is to make sure that you expand your network into the user base of your offering. Yeah,
Absolutely.
who are going to be the benefit? And even if whatever you're selling, if you could be selling print, but pick up the phone and speak to the people who use that print.
So the bad news is, in order to close a decent sale that's going to stay in and not fall out after the first mini sale, you do have to make more connections and you have to be more personable with more people. The good news is, if you do that, you could really end up with a solid client for a long, long period of time, because the impetus for continuing that relationship with you will come from multiple sources, not just from that one
Sure. And they
old-fashioned
don't change
decision maker.
willy-nilly. They don't change willy-nilly. Now, you'll have to learn how to jump through some hoops. If you're going to be flogging stuff to a big company and it exceeds a particular amount, you're going to be party to some rules. It's not just about price, it's not just about quality of service, it's not just about trust, but it's about, as we used to say in Gartner, the total cost of ownership. And it's about the overall big picture. They want to know about your financial viability. They might send you a questionnaire asking you to produce, a few years worth of company accounts. They don't want to be dealing with somebody that's going to be going out of business next year.
Also, the other big thing is, if they're going to buy into your Okie Kokie 2000, they'll want to know about SLAs. They'll want to know about whether or not, when it doesn't go right, that there's already somebody there that will pick up the pieces, that will provide the support in a timely fashion. So don't forget about all of that. The back end of it is as important, and reassuring people from the get-go that you are a 360 company, that you don't just look at the selling the product or the service or the software. You also look after the aftercare as well, will often buy you a lot of friends early on. And you need to be, the ethos within the company that you're targeting has got to be this company that Gareth represents. They're not just here for the sale, they're here for the support and the whole run. And I think you can do that. You'll end up with a business friend for life. You just got to get them there.
For sure. And thinking a bit more strategically, taking a step back just a little bit, is that, have some of these big elephants in your pipeline, and in your targeting. So look after your bread and butter. But if you want to have some big clients, if you want to take a step up and get more profitable, bigger clients, then make sure you have some of those target opportunities in your sites. Get some into the pipeline, and remember that the same sort of rules apply. If you want to close one, you're going to have 3 qualified opportunities that want to buy your stuff, that have told you that they want to buy your stuff. And to get those 3, you need to have 9 or 10 who actually just are qualified opportunities. Yeah. So you're going to have to make the same rules apply. You have to speak to a lot of people, take good notes, do your follow-up, and treat them like human beings. So there we have it. A little bit of an entry.
David, summarize the fact about about selling into big boys. Summarize.
So to sell into big, fine. So just in summary, you love my summaries, don't you?
I love a summary.
Yeah. So the summary is that don't be too scared, but don't be too but have some humility. Do your background, do your desk research, know your offering, know what they're buying. Find out who the key people are, not just the buyers, not just the decision makers, but the users, and develop your network with them. As you go in, be conscious that you are going to have to qualify as a potential supplier to them. So that's going to involve some grunt work, filling in some forms, being able to demonstrate your credibility, financial credibility, client credibility, and become a geek. Really know your chops. If you know what you're dealing with, then they will love you for it, because people love dealing with experts.
So once again, thanks for attending this. We do enjoy putting them out there. Of course, it's lovely when I get approached by people and say, that person you speak to also wears a hat and keeps talking about sales. We really like that. That's great news. It would be even nicer, and I keep asking for it. It's very rare I get it, but I'm asking for it. Please, if you could actually comment, share, repost, draw people's attention to the fact that we do these regularly, and we tend to do them on a Wednesday. It tends to be somewhere around 10ish, 10:30, 11, that sort of time. Please watch out for it, because hopefully we're going to be dropping some bombs in 2024 that hopefully will get you on the right path. But until the next time, thank you so much, and of course, safe mental health. Bye now.
Ciao, ciao.
I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it. Unbelievable.